So again, just to kind of start here today, I wanted to go over some of the highlights of the product. In general, it is a print color quality solution for your press room. It's designed for any type of printer out there. It's a real-time monitoring the press room and the color quality that can be seen from multiple locations. It gives the printer and I guess even the operator a chance to detect problems earlier in the process, which in turn would reduce the number of remakes and save money on ink and paper. So basically, the whole idea of the software, is instead of just taking handheld measurements, it's a way to, I guess, level the playing field, collect, store, analyze, and learn from your production environment, so you can figure out how to get more efficient within your process. So we talked a little bit about the connection here and leveling the playing field, and I guess being able to see things from a high level. Connecting your workflow is a big piece of the solution here. So you can see in the middle we have our ChromaQA cloud server. That's where all the information is going to be stored, and then you can kind of see the nice flow of the process, I guess, around the server. So you have your server, and then you have your client, workstations as well. We're going to connect the customer, which is then going to lead into the ink room, so they can formulate these inks, head into pre-press, into the press room, and then back on the back end, on a high level, so you can do some reporting. And one of the nice things about the solution is that it's cloud-based, as you can see. And we're not just talking about one press room, we're talking about connecting multiple press rooms and multiple plants, across the country or even across the globe. So what's new? TECHKON's had ChromaQA software in the past. This is version 3. So what's new about the new version of Chroma? Literally everything. We did not rebuild any of the old versions of Chroma. We did not work off of, any of the infrastructure from those old versions of Chroma either. We basically completely redesigned the product from the ground up and tried to build something, like we said, exciting for our customers. As we discussed, client-server model, I guess, is kind of the way we went with this. So it's a SQL Server, true relational database. And you're going to have your client applications downloaded on, all of your individual workstations. And then the server, which is hosted by TECHKON on an Amazon cloud server, is going to be where all your data is safely backed up. Some of the key features of the software, again, Steve's going to be going through a lot of these as he brings you through the demo, but wanted to highlight and focus on a few here before we get started. Ease of use. It's something that TECHKON really focuses on all of our products. If any of you out there are familiar with our handheld devices, the SpectroDENS, our scanners, any of our other software products, we try to make it as easy to use as possible, especially for the operator. So that, again, is what we've done here. With the software, a lot of steps that it will bring you through. It's kind of dummy-proof in that sense. And then again, for the operator, we're going to try to make that screen that the operator is viewing as simple as possible and customizable as well. It's a low-cost solution. So if we look at some of the competitive solutions on the market, we're about half the price of anything else on the market currently. We talked already about the client-server architecture, but again, you can manage everything from one central location, run your reports from one central location, and you could be managing presses and press rooms, all across the country. We do comply with all of the latest industry standards, so we build in, the aim and tolerance values for ISO and G7, so you can easily, make sure you're within those specifications if that's what you're trying to aim towards. We do have a scoring system. Some softwares out there will kind of give you some pre-canned scorecard to use. We make the scorecard customizable, so we'll get into that a little bit in the demo as well. But just gives you a good way to I guess, really try to focus on the metrics that you're worried about and you're trying to hit, and using that as your kind of pass-fail and scorecard verification throughout the process. We do have one of our more popular features on the handheld device in our scanners is called Ink Check. We brought that feature into the software. Basically, what we're going to do in Ink Check is we're going to give the operator density moves to make to lower their delta E. And again, Steve will talk about this in the demo as he gets to that point. Let's see what else. TECHKON Color Ensure. This is an awesome feature that we're really excited about. Basically, I said a little bit earlier, I talked about leveling the playing field. It's great if you were to go out and buy, everyone brand new SpectroDENS spectrophotometers, but how can you ensure that everyone's using those spectrophotometers the same way? Color Ensure is how you can do that. So you can basically take settings from the device, lock them in from an administrative level. The operators could change any setting they want on the device. The second they plug it into our software, it's basically going to override those changes and get them back to the defaults that the administrator had originally set. So takes any of that user error out and, again, levels the playing field for all your operators. The dashboard's where the operator is going to live, where they're going to see all their readings, and it's customizable. So we know not every printer, every operator is going to be wanting to look at the same metrics. So there's 4 quadrants within this dashboard and drop-down menus so the operator can customize it and see only the information that they'd like to see. Reporting, obviously, is a big feature as well. There's customizable report templates. So again, you don't just have to go with some stock can reports. You can choose which metrics you want to be displayed, and you can save those, print those, and share them with your customers. And then lastly, we have finalized our integration for two-way communication with Shock's Color Drive. So if you're doing any printing that necessitates work with Color Drive, we have a direct connection to that, so you can submit the data to Shock and immediately receive a scorecard. So there are 5 modules of ChromaQA. This is kind of the home screen that you would see when you're first logging in. We are going to focus today on the demo on creating a job in the ChromaSpec branch and then running a job in the ChromaPress branch. But we do have, obviously, the admin branch for creating the different settings, the report branch for running your reports, and the standards branch for managing your color standards. So I'll give you a quick glimpse here. Let's see, this is the admin screen. So you can see here at the top of the screen there's different areas in here that the administrator can change, assign different groups and roles and users, the tolerances, your scorecard settings, even your color drive settings as well. But we're in the global preferences tab, which is just showing you, kind of a simple view of the different measurement conditions and such that an administrator can set, and then you can lock those settings in, which would prevent any users from making any changes. So you see your measurement conditions. You can allow or disallow operators to create OK sheets, depending on your preference. And then your reporting metrics. Again, we know not everyone wants to see the same data all the time. It could be different per job. It could be different per industry. So we wanted to make this customizable so you can, again, just view the metrics that matter to you. Moving over into the standards branch, this is where you would manage your color libraries. So pretty easy to use. You can import a color library, basically anything that you have pre-existing already. You could simply type in an LAB value, or you could use our device and measure in a color and drop that into a library as well. ChromaSpec, this is where you would be creating your print job. So Steve is going to go through this. I won't spend too much time on this tab, just to show you a little bit of what it looks like here, picking your solids, the LAB values, and you can see some other tabs here as well. But Steve will go into way more detail on the ChromaSpec piece of the solution and the ChromaPress module as well. So this we talked about a little bit, the scorecard you can see here. And this is the customizable dashboard I was talking about, where the operator can come in and just choose exactly what data they want to see, from a high level, and then they can always drill down to dig a little bit deeper as well. All right, so that about wraps it up for my portion here. I'm going to get us over to Steve. Steve's got the exciting part. He can show you guys all exactly how the software works, what it looks like. I'm going to pass the controls over to Steve.
All right. Good afternoon, everybody. As Devin has introduced me, my name is Steve Rankin, and I'm going to walk you through two of the modules in ChromaQA. We're going to go through the Chroma Spec, and I'll take you through the process to make new jobs, and so you can see what that looks like. And then we're going to log in as a pressman and run one of the jobs that we make. So get started here. Like Devin said, there's 5 modules to the software. I'm logged in now as an admin user. The admin has access to all 5 of the modules. When you configure the software for your environment, you actually get to define different roles. So that happens in the admin area where Devin kind of showed you. When you do define these roles, you can then define what parts of the program each of those roles has access to. So I've already made a pressman role, and then when you make your users, you assign a user a role inside the software. So they only have access to the parts of the program you want them to have access to. So I'm going to start off in the Chroma Spec, and I have a window that shows me I have 2 jobs that I've already created. If I wanted to edit one of these jobs, I could do so. If I wanted to duplicate the job and change just a couple settings, I could do so. But I'm going to take you through the process of making a new job. So I hit this plus sign. And, again, I think Devin mentioned it. We really put a lot of effort and emphasis on making the software easy to use. So we have a little job wizard that walks us through the process of creating a new job. So the first step here is just some basic job information. I can configure what my measurement conditions are. So I can, choose from different measurement conditions, my illuminant observer, different density filters, and delta E formula as well. So I'm going to leave this set up like this for my job. And then next up is job fields. So these are completely configurable and customizable by the user. You decide how many job fields you want to have, if any, and you decide what those fields are. So when I was setting up for the demo here, I made these 4 fields, one for my stock, and I put in a couple different stocks in here. I'm going to say this job is customer supplied stock. For the job number, I do have a job number here. So I'm going to type in my job number, and I can pick my my customer. Let's say this is a Home Depot job, and maybe who my account manager is. Let's say this is Devin in this case. Devin did mention that we have support for ColorDrive. I'm not going to go in and show that today, but we do have support inside here. So when I'm all set, I'm going to go next. And I get to pick a color bar for this job. So I've got 3 color bars that I've made previously. If I need to make a new one, again, I use the plus sign down here. I have a color bar editor. It works pretty simply. You can either drag patches this way to put a cyan solid here, and I'll put a cyan 50 here, or you can double click as well, like this, and you can build any kind of color bar you want. So again, you're not really making a color bar to use on press. You're really just recreating color bars that you're already using on press, so that ChromaQA knows what that color bar looks like and what colors are where. So I'm going to just cancel out of here, And I'm going to use this ISO PSO color bar. So step 3 is defining my reporting metrics. Again, I can kind of configure this. If I don't care about trap, I can turn this off, and the program isn't going to ask me to set what the desired or what the aim trap value is. It's not going to ask me what tolerance to put around it and things like that. For the purpose of the demo, I'm going to leave everything turned on, and I'll go next. And so here you get to pick your print standard. So this is really where you're defining what all the aim colors are for all the colors in my color bar. So it's divided up into tabs, right? I see my substrate, here are my solid colors, I've got some tints, and I've got some overprints inside that color bar. So I can do this a couple different ways. We do have some predefined standards built into the program. So I have ISO standards built in. We also have G7 standards built in as well. If I had chosen back in my reporting metrics page to use G7, I would see the G7 standards here as well. The way this works, you pick the standard you want, and then you can come over and pick any one of those standard print conditions. And so this is going to pre-populate all the values for substrate solids, what the dot gain should be, and my overprint values based on whichever one of these settings I pick. If I'm, a flexo printer and I have a, maybe some kind of a 5 or 6 color color bar, I might choose a different workflow. I'm not going to use one of these standards, but instead I can actually load colors from my color standards area. So I happen to have some, well, let's just look at this Pantone library here. So, here's a Pantone library. If I wanted to load colors in this way, right, I could very easily load colors in this way for the job as well. But for the press sheet that I have in front of me, and for the purpose of this demo, we are going to go back to this ISO, and I think I'm going to use print condition 2, live backing. So that's going to predefine all my settings for me. Density is not part of that standard, so I'm going to go ahead and just give my pressmen some target densities to shoot for here. 155, and I'm going to do 1.4. Can you? Oh, thank you. 1.4, and I'm going to do 1.35, and I'm going to put in 1L for my target densities. And then I'm going to hit next here and go on to the next step. Okay, so the next step is the tolerances. So again, I can set tolerances for any one of my print conditions. These tolerances, because of the ISO standard, it's actually going to be they're predefined tolerances. If they weren't, if I was doing that flexo job, then I could actually dial in whatever tolerance set that I would like. So this is where you can change what these tolerances are. For my delta E's, looks like I have 5 on my solids and 0.05 on density. I'm just going to leave it at that for now. I think that's going to be okay. I'm going to hit next. And finally, there's a built-in scorecards feature inside ChromaQA. This is completely configurable by the user, so you guys can decide what attributes you want to include in your scorecard. You can define the ranges and the point system. It's totally configurable by you. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and just assign some weights to this particular job. My customer really cares that I hit my solids, right, the delta E's. see here, and I'll put 10% on my my PVI, and we'll see what happens. And then you can set a minimum passing score here as well. So I'm going to leave it at 75. That's the default. We'll see what happens. And I'm going to save this job. So Devin, I think Devin mentioned earlier this concept of groups. You can set that up in the admin. I made 3 groups for my fictitious printing company that we're looking at here today. I've got a print location in Boston, one in Chicago, and one in Shanghai. So I can decide which groups I want this job to go into. And I'm just going to call this Walmart Part 2. And if I know this job is going to be printed only by the team in Boston or in that location, I do this, and only the Boston group, only users in the Boston group are going to see this job, and it will be invisible to everybody else. However, if it was going to be printed in Boston and Chicago, I would do this here, and then both teams can see and access this group or this job. So I'm going to go ahead and save that job, and there it is in my list of jobs. And I am now going to go log in as a pressman. Let's go home. And I made a user. I made a pressman called Dan. Dan's password is Dan also. So here we go, Dan, and Dan's going to log in. And like I said, Dan only has access to the press module. So when Dan logs in, this is what he sees. He clicks on this, and he can see the jobs, right? These jobs are in his queue. These are in the press queue. So there's my job, Walmart Part 2. I'm going to just double-click on it. And Dan's about to run this job. So the first thing Dan sees is this Info tab. And the Info tab, the purpose of this is really just to kind of let Dan be sure that he's chosen the right job. So he can see the name of the job. He can see that, okay, the stock is customer supplied. Do I have the right stock on, in press? Here's the job number that he can check out. He knows Devin is the account manager, so if something goes wrong, right, he better call Devin. And he can see what colors are loaded into the press. So when Dan is convinced he's got the right job, he flips over to the Measure tab. And this is really where he's going to spend most of his time here. So, Dan's going to get the press up to speed, and he's going to try and get it up to color. And when Dan is ready to take a measurement, he's going to pull a sheet or cut a piece out, and he's going to click this plus sign right here to make a new scan. And the first thing that happens, this TECHKON Color Ensure, I heard Devin mention this earlier in the presentation. This thing is always checking to be sure that my instrument matches the matches the measurement conditions set up in the job. So this way you know that everybody and all the measurements are going to be done correctly, because you know what happens when people unplug the instrument and move it around somewhere else. Those settings get changed. So as soon as I hit yes, it's going to reconfigure the instrument. And if Dan hits no, it's actually not going to scan for him. So he has no choice really but to hit yes. So I hit yes, and it's done. My instrument has now been reconfigured. What you can't see is I have a press sheet in front of me, and I have my instrument connected through a USB cable to my computer, and I am ready to scan this press sheet. So let me grab my instrument, and I am going to scan it. So first scan is done. First scan is done, and I can see all the data has come in. So right away, I'm going to take you through what this interface looks like. It's a tabbed interface, so I'm on the dashboard tab. I'm going to come back to the dashboard tab at the end. But I might start over here at the solids tab. And I have sub-tabs over on the left. So I can look at this, the scan data for my solids in a tabular form, right? Like you see here, I can see what the reference data is, the reference lab data that is. I can see what the AIM densities were, right? 155 on the black, 14 on the cyan. I can see what my measurements were. I can check what the, what my tolerance was on the delta E was 5. And I have kind of a tabular view to see what's going on if I'm in spec or out of spec. So this is one way to look at the data. But if I'm a pressman, I might not want to stare so closely at the screen. I might want to look at it in more at a glance. And so I'm going to jump over to the delta density, right? So as a pressman, this is my first pull. This might be the first place that I start. I'm going to see how am I doing on my densities. Am I within spec, and how far away am I from my AIM target values? And I can see everything is in spec. The magenta is pretty close. It's right on the edge, right, of the tolerance there. So I'm not doing too bad, but I do have some indication about what to do here. I can also look at the delta E, and I can see how I'm doing on my delta E's. Again, simple bar graph, right? If I'm standing back or even far away from this computer, I can kind of see what's going on. I do have the ink check feature plugged in here. So we're given the pressman specific density moves to reduce and minimize the delta E difference that they're going to get. So on black, it looks like I'm as good as I'm going to get, right? There's no difference. There's no way I'm going to get below a 1.16. On the cyan, it looks like I can do some, I can improve there. I can take the density down 0.05, and I can reduce that delta E from a 103 down to a 0.4. So that's not bad. And same on magenta and yellow, right? I'm given some slight moves to increase the delta E there. Just as, another feature in the software here, if you saw that, you can't get there from here, meaning, there really is no density move that's going to reduce that delta E to bring that intolerance, you can export that one color, and you can export it out right over to our Calibri software, where you could reformulate that color immediately. So that's kind of a look there. We do have some other graphs here, right? So there's a spider plot of the data with a gamut plot as well. There's a hue chroma graph, which is an interesting graph because this kind of also can give you that indication if you can get there with the ink that you have on press. If these colors plot along this dotted line, then you kind of know that with density moves, you can get there. But if you're off of that line, then you're probably going to have to reformulate the ink. And if I really wanted, I could come in here and look at some spectral curves for my solids. So then, back up to the top, I can look at my tints, and I can see what's happening in this table view. Everything has a table view and then some graphs. So the table view tells me, yep, I'm doing pretty good. The yellow, there's something funky going on down here. If I want to look at the graph view, let's just see what's happening with that yellow. Right now I can see that 40%, it is out of tolerance, so I might need to make an adjustment there. Other colors look to be in spec. Okay. I can check out my overprints. Again, I have a table view of my overprints, and I can see what's happening here. My trap values are a little off from what the desired was. I can look at my substrate, and again, I have the table, and I have a graph of whether my substrate is hitting its spec. And then I have the scorecard tab at the end, which kind of rolls all this up into a passing or failing grade for the pressman and gives some kind of a breakdown here as well. So, for this particular job, This is the information we can look at. It's kind of a lot of information. Again, as a pressman, I might come over here to the dashboard view, and I might configure this so it's easier for me to work with. So I might leave in the upper left here, maybe my solids, the delta density. Underneath, I'm going to put the delta E, because that's always nice to have. I need to know what's happening there. And then this is actually, the rest of it is okay. It's okay. I like having my tints in the upper right and my scorecard in the lower right. So I can kind of see at a glance what's happening. And I can always, make adjustments on press, pull another sheet, scan it again, and see how these numbers are improving or not. So all of the scans are going to live up here in the scan menu. And we assume that the user is in a make-ready mode as soon as they enter into this module and start doing scans. So they're in a make-ready mode. When I have hit my targets and I've got sellable product and I'm in production mode, I'm ready to go into production mode, I can click on this flag right here, which is going to end the make-ready mode, and it's going to flag this scan and all future scans as production product or production scans. And it's kind of an important feature because you're not going to see it today, but in the reporting module, this is where you're going to see all these scans, and we can quickly filter out all those make-ready scans because we don't want to make a report that includes those make-ready scans. But they would be there if you did want to see them or review them. So that's kind of a quick tour of the spec branch where we made a job and the press branch where we ran the job. One more feature that we do have in here, which is set an OK sheet. So this figure is it is configurable when making the job. So if you don't want your pressman to have this option, you just disable it. But if the option is there and you do get a sheet that you like and you want to OK that, you can click this button here, and it's now going to set this sheet as the aim, as the target for all the other sheets, and everything else will be measured against that one sheet that you chose to be your OK sheet. So when you're done, you can click the back button. It's going to ask me to save my changes. I'm going to say yes, and I'm going to save those records up to the cloud server where they can, someone else, maybe the QA manager, can make a report on that job later on. Or if I wanted to print that job again or add some other scans to it in the future, I could do that as well. So that's kind of the quick tour. Looks like